Dust swirled like ghosts in the slanted morning light of Ruston, Ohio, where the air hung heavy with the tang of motor oil and fresh-cut alfalfa from the fields beyond. Riley Kane gripped the wrench tighter than she meant to, her knuckles whitening against the rusted bolt on the underbelly of a battered Chevy pickup. At 32, she was all sinew and calluses, her dark skin etched with faint scars from years of coaxing life back into machines that had long given up. The garage radio crackled with a faint twang of country guitar, but Riley barely heard it over the roar in her chest. She had woken that morning with the same hollow ache, the kind that settled in after her father's old shop nearly folded under the weight of another lean winter. Bills piled like snowdrifts on the scarred wooden desk in the corner, and the bank's latest letter burned a hole in her pocket. But it was the loneliness that clawed deepest, a quiet storm she buried under layers of flannel and steel-toed boots. The bell above the office door jangled like a warning shot, pulling her head up sharp. In stepped a woman who looked like she had tumbled straight out of one of those glossy magazines Riley glimpsed at the gas station checkout. Blonde hair cascaded in soft waves down her shoulders, catching the light like spun gold, and her green eyes scanned the dim space with a mix of curiosity and barely veiled unease. She wore a cream silk blouse tucked into high-waisted trousers that hugged her slender hips, a far cry from the oil-stained jeans that defined Riley's world. In her hand, a sleek leather tote bag swung lightly, keys dangling from a fob that screamed city money. Harper Ellis, 28 and sharp as a switchblade, had driven through the night from Chicago, chasing the ghost of a family inheritance in some forgotten corner of the Midwest. Her heels clicked tentatively on the concrete floor, echoing like accusations in the cavernous bay. "Can I help you?" Riley called out, her voice rougher than the gravel outside, wiping her hands on a rag that smelled of gasoline and regret. She straightened up, all 6 feet of her unfolding like a shadow, her cropped black hair damp at the temples from the early heat. The blonde paused, her lips parting in a breath that carried the faint scent of lavender lotion across the divide. "My car's making this rattling noise, like bones shaking loose." Her words tumbled out polished, laced with that North Side Chicago lilt, but there was a tremor beneath, the exhaustion of a woman who had mapped every mile on her GPS but none in her heart. Riley nodded once, slow and deliberate, stepping forward with the easy grace of someone who knew every creak in this place. Up close, Harper's perfume cut through the garage's metallic bite, a floral whisper that made Riley's pulse stutter. She had seen her share of transients, the ones passing through Ruston on their way to somewhere that mattered, but this one lingered in the air like smoke from a dying fire. "Pop the hood," Riley said, her dark eyes flicking up to meet Harper's, holding just a beat too long. There it was, that spark, unbidden and electric like static jumping between bare wires. Harper felt it too, a flush creeping up her neck, warm as the rising sun filtering through the grimy windows. She turned away quickly, fumbling with her keys, the metal jangling in her grip. As Riley leaned over the engine, her fingers tracing the familiar lines of hoses and belts, the world narrowed to the rhythm of their breathing. Harper watched from the sidelines, arms crossed over her chest, the silk of her blouse whispering against her skin. She had left Chicago in a haze of boardroom battles and hollow dates with men who saw her as a trophy, not a tempest. Her family's old farmhouse waited 20 miles east, a crumbling relic tied to a will she had come to claim, but the drive had unraveled something inside her, threads of doubt pulling loose. And now, here in this oil-slicked sanctuary, stood a woman who looked like she could rebuild the world with her bare hands. "It's the Serpentine Belt," Riley murmured after a moment, her voice low, almost intimate, as if sharing a secret with the engine itself. She straightened, brushing a streak of grime across her forearm, and caught Harper's gaze again. Those green eyes, wide and searching, pulled at her like gravity. Riley had loved once, fierce and fleeting. A girl from high school who fled to the coasts with promises that dissolved like mist. Since then it was just her and the hum of engines, the steady thrum that never broke your heart. Harper shifted her weight, the concrete cool beneath her impractical shoes. "How long to fix it?" she asked, but her tone betrayed her, soft around the edges, like she wasn't just asking about the car. Riley shrugged, a small smile tugging at her full lips, the first real one in days. "Couple hours." "You got time for coffee down at Millie's?" The words hung there, casual as the dust motes dancing in the light, but they carried the weight of an invitation to something deeper, something that could shift the fault lines of their separate lives. Harper hesitated, her heart kicking against her ribs like a trapped bird. She thought of the empty farmhouse, the echoing silence of rooms filled with ghosts, and the pull of this stranger's steady gaze. "Yeah," she said finally, the word slipping out on a sigh. "I think I do." They walked out into the morning together, the screen door slapping shut behind them like a punctuation mark. The sun climbed higher, baking the asphalt, and the distant low of cattle mingled with the rustle of cornstalks bending in the breeze. Millie's diner squatted on the corner of Main and Elm, its neon sign flickering even in daylight, promising pie and gossip in equal measure. Inside, the air was thick with the sizzle of bacon and the murmur of locals nursing mugs of black coffee. Riley held the door, her hand brushing Harper's elbow by accident, or maybe not, sending a jolt through them both. They slid into a booth by the window, vinyl creaking under them, the surface sticky from years of spills. A waitress with a name tag reading Doris ambled over, her pencil poised over a notepad yellowed with age. "Usual for you, Riley," she drawled, eyeing Harper with the keen interest of small-town radar. "Black, no sugar," Riley replied, her boot tapping a restless rhythm under the table. "And whatever the lady wants." Harper ordered a latte, the word sounding foreign in the diner's grease-scented air, and felt the weight of curious glances from the counter. She smoothed her hair, a nervous habit, and met Riley's eyes across the scarred formica. "So you're the town fixer," she said, aiming for light, but her voice came out threaded with genuine wonder. Riley chuckled, a low rumble that vibrated through the space between them. "Something like that. Dad built the shop from scrap after the mill closed. Kept folks moving when everything else ground to a halt." She leaned back, arms folding across her chest, the flannel straining slightly over her shoulders. The story spilled out easy, words polished by repetition, but there was a raw edge to it, the ache of loss woven in like rust on old iron. Harper listened, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug when it arrived, the steam curling up warm against her face. She shared fragments of her own world in return, the high-rises of Chicago where deals were struck over martinis and ambition was the only currency that mattered. But beneath the polish, she confessed the cracks, the nights staring at her reflection in floor-to-ceiling windows, wondering if success tasted like ash. Their laughter mingled at one point, soft and unexpected, when Riley mimicked a client's panic over a flat tire, her hands gesturing wildly, grease smudges forgotten. By the time they pushed back from the table, the sun had tipped toward noon, shadows shortening across the street. Harper's car waited, belt replaced, purring smooth under Riley's touch. But as she slid behind the wheel, engine humming to life, something shifted in the air, thick as the humidity rolling in from the fields. "Thanks," Harper said, her hand lingering on the gear shift, eyes flicking to Riley's face, searching for the unspoken. Riley leaned against the open door, the metal warm under her palm, close enough to catch the faint salt of Harper's skin mixed with that lavender ghost. "Drive safe," she murmured, but her voice dipped low, laced with a hunger she hadn't named yet. Their fingers brushed as Harper pulled away, a fleeting contact that lingered like an echo. That night, in the quiet of her apartment above the garage, Riley lay awake on her lumpy mattress, the ceiling fan whirring lazy circles overhead. The scent of coffee clung to her shirt, mingled with the phantom trace of Harper's perfume. Down the hall, the farmhouse loomed in Harper's mind, its walls pressing in with the weight of inheritance and isolation. She paced the creaky floors, phone in hand, thumb hovering over Riley's number scribbled on a napkin. The distance between them stretched like the miles back to the city, but the pull was stronger, a current neither could ignore. Days blurred into a tentative rhythm. Harper delayed her return, citing paperwork at the farmhouse, but truth be told, it was the mornings at the garage that anchored her. She'd arrive with excuses, a loose muffler or a check engine light that flickered only in her imagination. Riley never questioned it, just rolled up her sleeves and dove in, their conversations weaving deeper with each visit. They talked of dreams deferred, Riley's sketch of a custom bike shop that could rival anything in Detroit. Harper's secret sketches of landscapes, hidden in legal pads, strokes of charcoal capturing the wild bend of Ohio rivers. One evening as thunderheads gathered on the horizon, painting the sky in bruised purples, they sat on the garage's loading dock, legs dangling over the edge. Rain pattered tentative at first, then sheeted down in earnest, drumming on the tin roof like impatient fingers. Harper shivered, her thin sweater no match for the chill, and Riley shrugged off her jacket without a word, draping it over Harper's shoulders. The flannel enveloped her, warm from Riley's body, carrying the musk of sweat and earth. "You're not like anyone here," Harper whispered, the words slipping out amid the downpour's roar. Rain slicked her hair, plastering blonde strands to her cheeks, and her eyes shone with something fierce, unguarded. Riley turned, her breath catching at the sight, water beating on Harper's lashes like tears. "And you're not like anyone I've known," she replied, voice husky, the space between them shrinking to inches. Their hands found each other in the dim light, fingers interlacing rough against smooth, the contact sending sparks up spines. The kiss came slow, inevitable, lips meeting soft and searching, tasting of rain and unspoken fears. Thunder rolled distant, but the real storm brewed in the press of bodies, hearts slamming in unison. They broke apart gasping, foreheads resting together, breaths mingling hot and ragged. "This can't be simple," Harper murmured, her voice a tremor against Riley's skin. Riley's thumb traced Harper's jaw, gentle as a vow. "Nothing worth it ever is." Weeks unfurled like the lazy coils of the Ohio River snaking through Ruston, carrying Harper deeper into a world that both soothed and unsettled her. The farmhouse, with its sagging porches and wallpaper peeling like old skin, became less a burden and more a canvas. She spent mornings sanding floors, the rasp of sandpaper echoing her inner turmoil, while afternoons drew her back to the garage, where Riley's laughter cut through the din like sunlight-piercing clouds. Their connection bloomed in stolen moments, a brush of knuckles over a toolbox, a shared thermos of coffee passed hand to hand, steam rising like secrets between them. But cracks spiderwebbed beneath the surface. Harper's phone buzzed relentlessly from Chicago, her firm's senior partner demanding updates on a merger that could make or break her career. "Ellis, you're slacking out there in hayseed country," the voice crackled one afternoon, tinny through the speaker as she stood in the farmhouse kitchen, flour dusted from an impulsive attempt at biscuits. The words landed like barbs, reminding her of the polished life she had built, one of corner offices and networking galas where vulnerability was a liability. Riley sensed the shift that evening, as they walked the gravel path behind the shop, fireflies winking in the twilight like hesitant stars. The air hummed with crickets, thick and alive, and the distant call of whippoorwills wove through the branches. "You're carrying something heavy," Riley said, stopping to pluck a wild daisy from the roadside, twirling it between her fingers. Her eyes, dark and steady, searched Harper's face, reading the tension in the set of her shoulders. Harper sighed, the sound long and weary, releasing like steam from a kettle. She took the flower, its petals soft against her palm, and leaned against the shop's back wall, the brick still warm from the day's sun. Work. Expectations. The kind of life where love is scheduled between meetings. The admission hung there, raw and unvarnished, her green eyes glistening in the fading light. She thought of her ex, a sleek attorney named Victor, whose affections came wrapped in conditions, leaving her hollow as an empty briefcase. Riley stepped closer, the gravel crunching softly under her boots, her presence a solid anchor in the gathering dusk. She cupped Harper's cheek, thumb stroking the curve there, calluses gentle despite their roughness. "This place it's not on anyone's calendar, but it's real." Her voice dropped, intimate, carrying the faint echo of her own scars, the woman who had left her years ago, chasing spotlights in Nashville that never quite ignited. They kissed again, slower this time, bodies pressing close enough to share warmth against the cooling air. Harper's hand slid up Riley's back, fingers digging into the muscle there, feeling the steady beat of her heart through the thin cotton of her tee. The world narrowed to the taste of salt on skin, the rustle of leaves overhead, and the soft hitch in Riley's breath as Harper's lips trailed to her neck. Desire coiled tight. A spring wound from weeks of glances and grazes, but they pulled back, foreheads touching, breath sinking in the quiet. That night, tangled in Riley's narrow bed above the garage, the rain returned in a gentle patter, lulling them into exploration. Sheets twisted around limbs, Harper's blonde hair fanned across the pillow like a halo, her sighs mingling with Riley's murmurs of encouragement. Skin met skin in reverent discovery, hands mapping curves and hollows, the air thick with the scent of arousal and engine oil lingering on Riley's fingers. It was tender, urgent, a claiming that spoke of futures yet unwritten. Afterward they lay spent, Harper's head on Riley's chest, listening to the thunder of her pulse, the rise and fall of ribs like ocean waves. Morning brought clarity, sharp as the coffee Riley brewed on the hot plate. But with it came the call Harper had dreaded. Her mother, voice brittle over the line from their Gold Coast condo. "Darling, when are you coming home? This rustic detour is charming, but your future isn't in some podunk town." The words sliced deep, evoking the sterile elegance of Harper's upbringing, where emotions were discussed in therapy sessions, not lived in the grit of daily life. She hung up, phone clattering to the counter, and found Riley in the bay, elbow deep in a transmission, her focus a shield against the world's intrusions. "I have to go back," Harper said, the words tasting like ash on her tongue. "Just for a meeting. A week tops." Riley emerged, wiping her hands, her expression a mask of understanding that didn't quite hide the flicker of fear in her eyes. "Yeah, life doesn't pause for us." She pulled Harper into a hug, strong arms enveloping her, the embrace fierce as if to imprint the memory. They parted with a kiss that lingered, salty with unshed tears, the garage door rumbling shut like a sigh. Chicago swallowed Harper whole, its skyline a jagged crown of steel and glass, horns blaring in perpetual discord. Her apartment on the loop overlooked the churning lake, waves crashing against the seawall like her own restless thoughts. The merger meetings blurred into a haze of projections and PowerPoints, colleagues clapping her on the back with congratulations that felt like chains. Evenings found her at rooftop bars, the clink of glasses and murmur of deals a poor substitute for the quiet rhythm of Rustin's nights. She texted Riley fragments, photos of the bean sculpture glinting under city lights, voice notes heavy with longing. "Miss the way the air smells after rain there," one read, sent at 2 a.m., her fingers trembling over the screen. Back in Ohio, Riley threw herself into work, the clang of tools a distraction from the empty space beside her at Millie's. Doris noticed, sliding extra slices of pie her way with a knowing wink. "That city girl's got you twisted up good," the waitress said one afternoon, pouring refills with a steady hand. Riley just grunted, but the truth gnawed at her, a fear that Harper's world would pull her under like quicksand. The week stretched to 10 days, then 2. Excuses piling like the leaves falling crisp outside the farmhouse windows. Harper's resolve frayed, threads of duty tangling with the vivid dreams of Riley's touch, the way her laughter rumbled like a well-tuned V8. Finally, on a gray Thursday, she packed her bag, the leather tote heavier with indecision. The drive south wound through toll roads and flatlands, her playlist shuffling ballads of lost love, each chord twisting the knife deeper. She arrived at dusk, the garage lights spilling golden onto the street, Riley silhouetted in the doorway like a sentinel. No words at first, just the rush into each other's arms, bodies colliding with the force of pent-up storm. "I couldn't stay away," Harper whispered against Riley's neck, her voice breaking on the words, tears hot on skin. Riley held her tighter, inhaling the city scent clinging to Harper's hair, mingled with the familiar lavender. "Don't have to explain." They moved inside, the door clicking shut, and the night unfolded in whispers and caresses, reclaiming what distance had tried to steal. But the reprieve was fleeting. The next morning, over eggs scrambled on Riley's stove, Harper's phone lit up again. This time it was the offer. Partner track, a corner office with a view of the world she had clawed to conquer. The words blurred on the screen, promise and prison intertwined. She set the phone down, fork pausing midway to her mouth, the sizzle of bacon fading to white noise. Riley watched, her own plate untouched, the air between them thickening with the unspoken. "What does it say?" she asked finally, voice even, but her hands clenched under the table, nails biting into palms. Harper met her gaze, green eyes stormy. "Everything I've worked for. And everything I'm afraid to lose." The confession hung, heavy as the fog rolling off the river, forcing them to confront the chasm. One rooted in the soil of small-town survival, the other adrift in the currents of ambition. They drove to the river that afternoon, tires humming over cracked pavement, the cab filled with the scent of damp earth and unspoken fears. The water rushed brown and relentless below the rickety bridge, carrying fallen branches like burdens downstream. Riley parked at the overlook, engine ticking cool, and they stepped out into the whipping wind, jackets flapping like flags of surrender. "I grew up watching Dad pour his soul into that shop," Riley said, leaning on the railing, her voice carrying over the rush. "He said roots keep you standing when the storms hit, but mine feel like anchors sometimes." Wind tugged at her hair, wild and untamed, mirroring the vulnerability cracking her voice. Harper sidled closer, their shoulders brushing, the contact a lifeline. "In Chicago, roots are skyscrapers, cold and unyielding. I climbed them to escape, but now, I just want ground that gives a little." Her hand found Riley's, squeezing, the warmth seeping through gloves. The sun dipped low, painting the water in fiery streaks, and they kissed there, fierce and desperate, as if to seal a pact against the gathering dark. But doubt lingered, a shadow lengthening with the twilight. Autumn deepened its hold on Ruston, leaves carpeting the streets in crimson and gold, crunching underfoot like brittle memories. Harper's decision loomed, a specter at every meal, every stolen hour in the garage's shadowed corners. She threw herself into the farmhouse renovation, hammer swings echoing her inner hammer blows, while Riley's nights grew longer, the shop's fluorescent hum her only companion. Their love, once a wildfire, now smoldered with urgency, each touch laced with the fear of finality. One crisp Saturday they escaped to the county fairgrounds on the edge of town, where the air buzzed with the scent of fried dough and caramel apples, laughter rising in waves from the midway. Ferris wheel lights twinkled against the bruising sky, casting kaleidoscopic patterns on their faces as they queued for tickets. Riley bought cotton candy, the pink fluff melting sticky on her fingers, and Harper licked it off with a grin that lit the dusk, their giggles drawing sidelong glances from farm families in plaid and denim. They rode the scrambler first, the machine whirling them in chaotic spins, screams tearing from their throats amid the carnival's cacophony. Pressed close in the gondola, Harper's head on Riley's shoulder, the world blurred to streaks of color, a momentary reprieve from the weight. "Remember this," Harper murmured as they stumbled off, legs wobbly, cheeks flushed. "No matter what." Riley pulled her into the funhouse next, mirrors warping their reflections into giants and dwarfs, laughter echoing distorted off the walls. In one panel they appeared fused, a single form of blended strengths, Harper's elegance softening Riley's edges. The image caught them, breath hitching, and Riley traced it with a finger, smudging the glass. "We could be that," she said, voice thick, turning to capture Harper's lips in a kiss that tasted of sugar and salt. But the evening's joy cracked under the strain. As fireworks erupted overhead, booms shaking the night, Harper's phone vibrated insistent in her pocket. She ignored it at first, mesmerized by the bursts of red and gold raining down, but the second buzz pulled her away. Stepping into the shadows beyond the crowd, she answered, her mother's voice slicing through the cheers. "You've ignored the offer long enough, Harper. Victor's asking about you. Stability, darling, not some fling in the sticks." The words landed like fireworks gone wrong, scorching. Harper glanced back at Riley, silhouetted against the glow, handing a child a lost balloon with that quiet kindness that undid her every time. "It's not a fling," she whispered fiercely into the phone, but the line went dead, leaving her adrift in the echo. She returned to Riley's side, face schooled to neutrality, but the tremor in her hand betrayed her as they walked to the truck. The drive home wound silent, save for the crackle of the radio playing a mournful ballad about roads not taken. Riley's grip on the wheel tightened at a curve, knuckles paling. "Talk to me," she said finally, pulling into the farmhouse drive, gravel spitting under tires. Harper unbuckled, the click loud in the cab's tension. They want me back. Full commitment. The life I built. Tears welled, hot and unbidden, spilling over as she met Riley's eyes, dark pools of pain mirroring her own. But leaving you. It guts me. Riley reached across, cupping her face, thumb swiping tears with a tenderness that broke them both. I won't beg you to choose. But damn if it doesn't hurt like hell. Her voice cracked, the first fracture in her armor, and she pulled Harper across the console into a crushing embrace, sobs muffled against flannel. They made love that night in the farmhouse's master bed. Dust sheets cast aside, the room lit by a single lamp's glow. It was slower, more deliberate, bodies moving in a dance of desperation and devotion. Harper's fingers traced the scars on Riley's back, faint lines from a teenage shop accident, whispering apologies for wounds she hadn't caused. Riley kissed the freckles dusting Harper's collarbone, murmuring praises like prayers, her breath warm against cooling skin. Climax came in waves crashing together, leaving them entwined, slick and spent, the night's chill seeping through cracked windows. Dawn crept in gray fog blanketing the fields, and with it came resolve. Harper dressed quietly, jeans and a borrowed hoodie from Riley's drawer, the fabric enveloping her like a reluctant goodbye. Downstairs, coffee perked on the stove, its bitter aroma filling the kitchen as Riley appeared. Hair tousled, eyes red-rimmed from fitful sleep. I'm going, Harper said, pouring 2 mugs, hands steady despite the quake inside. But not for good. I need to face it, end it clean. Then, we figure us. Harper's drive to Chicago unfolded in a blur of interstates and rest stops, her mind replaying moments like film reels. Riley's laugh in the diner, the press of her body under starlit skies. The city greeted her with its familiar assault, skyscrapers looming like judgmental sentinels, the L train rattling overhead as she navigated to her firm's glass tower. The meeting room gleamed sterile, mahogany table polished to a sheen, partners arrayed like a tribunal. Harper, we've missed your edge, the senior said, sliding the contract across, gold pen glinting. Sign and the world opens. She stared at the pages, ink blurring, the weight of it all crashing down. Memories flooded. The garage's earthy scent, Riley's calloused hand in hers, the simple truth of love unscripted. No, she said, voice clear, pushing the papers back. This isn't my world anymore. The room fell silent, stares boring into her, but Harper stood, tote bag slung over shoulder, the door swinging shut behind her like a period. Outside, the wind off the lake whipped her hair, freedom tasting sharp on her tongue. She called Riley from a bench in Millennium Park, the bean arching overhead like a bridge to possibility. I'm coming home, she said, the words blooming warm. Our home. Riley's exhale crackled through the line, relief flooding like sunlight. Drive safe, Blondie. I'll have the coffee on. But fate, that capricious mechanic, had one more twist. En route south, Harper's car sputtered on a rain-slicked stretch near Toledo, the same rattling betrayal from their first meeting. Steam hissed from the hood, wipers slapping futile against the deluge. She called Riley, voice steady despite the panic rising, thunder rumbling overhead like disapproval. Hang tight, Riley replied, already grabbing keys, the truck's engine roaring to life minutes later. She arrived soaked, waiter splashing through puddles, toolkit in hand. Under the torrent they worked side by side, Harper holding the flashlight steady, Riley's curses lost to the storm. Laughter bubbled up unexpected, hysterical, as lightning forked the sky, illuminating their drenched forms. Fixed and onward, they reached the farmhouse as midnight tolled, peeling off wet clothes in the foyer, towels wrapping chilled skin. Curled by the fireplace, flames crackling soft, Harper traced Riley's jaw. I chose us, she whispered, the words a vow etched in embers. Riley kissed her temple, breath warm. And I choose you every damn day. Winter whispered in on the heels of November, frosting the farmhouse windows in delicate filigree. The world outside hushed under a blanket of first snow. Harper and Riley settled into a rhythm forged in fire. The days a tapestry of shared labors and quiet intimacies. The garage thrived with Harper's ideas, her legal savvy negotiating grants that breathed new life into the sagging beams, while Riley taught her the poetry of pistons, hands guiding hands over gleaming chrome. Evenings found them in the kitchen, Harper's city recipes clashing delightfully with Riley's heartland staples, laughter seasoning the air as flour-dusted cheeks and wine-loosened tongues. Yet scars lingered, faint but insistent, reminders of the chasm they had bridged. Harper's mother visited once, gliding in like a specter in cashmere, her eyes narrowing at the mud tracked on the rugs, the casual press of Riley's hand on Harper's waist. "This phase," she said over tea, voice iced. "It passes like flu season." The words stung, but Harper met them head-on, green eyes flashing. "This is my season, Mom. Endless." Riley stood sentinel in the doorway, silent support, her presence a wall against the chill. The confrontation lingered, a frost that thawed slow in the warmth of their bond. They celebrated small victories, the shop's first custom job, a chopper for a local vet, unveiled under strung lights in the yard, engines purring like contented beasts. Friends gathered, Doris with her famous cobbler, neighbors toasting with mason jars of cider, the night alive with fiddle tunes from a battered stereo. Harper danced with Riley under the stars, boots scuffing snow, bodies swaying close, breaths clouding the air in white puffs. "I never knew Steady could feel this wild," Harper murmured, head on Riley's shoulder, the bass thrumming through them. Spring unfurled tentative, buds swelling on the maples lining Main Street, the river swelling with meltwater's rush. Harper's sketches evolved from hidden paths to shared dreams, her charcoal strokes capturing the garage's silhouette against dawn skies. Riley's form a recurring muse, strong lines softened by light. They talked futures over porch swings creaking in the breeze, fireflies returning like old confidants. "Expand the shop," Harper suggested one twilight, feet tucked under her, a sketch of additions spread on the railing. "Bikes restorations. Make it yours, ours." Riley traced the lines, her finger lingering on the shared office penciled in. "With you drafting the blues away," she teased, but her eyes shone serious, the weight of partnership settling easy. They kissed then, lazy and deep, the swing swaying gentle, crickets chorusing approval. But the past circled back unbidden in the form of Victor. He appeared one muggy afternoon, suit rumpled from the drive, standing awkward in the garage bay as Harper wiped her hands on a rag, Riley's shadow looming nearby. "Heard you turned down the offer," he said, voice edged with that old possessiveness, eyes flicking dismissively over Riley's grease-streaked overalls. "This interlude. It's not you, Harp." The air thickened, tools clanging forgotten in the background. Harper stepped forward, chin lifted, the fire Riley had kindled burning bright. "It is now. We're done. Vic, drive safe." Riley's hand found her lower back, a subtle claim, and Victor retreated, tail between legs, the truck's tires spinning gravel in defeat. That night they celebrated with a bonfire in the back field, flames leaping high, casting flickering shadows on their faces. Marshmallows charred on sticks, stories spun of triumphs and near misses, the crackle underscoring their laughter. Harper leaned into Riley, the heat warring with the night's cool kiss. "He didn't stand a chance," she said, voice low, laced with awe at her own boldness. Riley turned, eyes reflecting the blaze. "You did that. All you." Their lips met, smoke-tinged and sweet, hands roaming free under blankets as embers died to glow. Summer peaked in a blaze of county fairs and river floats, their love ripening like the corn stretching golden to the horizon. They adopted a stray mutt named Jax, his lopsided grin mirroring their own, romps through fields punctuating lazy Sundays. Harper's firm called once more. A remote consultancy offer, flexible threads to her old web. She accepted, laptop humming on the farmhouse table, balancing worlds without losing herself. Climax brewed in August swelter, a storm front rolling in unannounced, winds howling like banshees through the eaves. Power flickered out, plunging the farmhouse to darkness, thunder shaking the foundations. They huddled by candlelight, Jax curled at their feet, stories traded in whispers to drown the roar. But as lightning cracked, illuminating the room in stark flashes, doubt surfaced again, Harper's voice small amid the gale. What if the storms win? What if we break? Riley pulled her close, arms a fortress, the scent of rain-soaked earth drifting through cracked windows. We rebuild. Like always. The words anchored, and in the storm's fury, they made love on the rug, bodies arching in rhythm to the tempest, cries lost to the wind. Dawn broke clear, sky washed to brilliant blue, affirming their resilience. As leaves turned once more, they stood on the porch, watching harvest combines rumble distant, dust plumes rising like prayers. Harper's hand rested on a subtle curve, life stirring within, a secret shared in glances and touches. Our worlds collided, she said, voice soft with wonder, and made something new. Riley kissed her temple, hands splaying protective over the swell. Love from the ashes, meaning in the mend. In Ruston, where engines roared and hearts whispered, two women from fractured orbits found orbit in each other, a testament to bridges built from rust and resolve, enduring as the river's endless flow.